And we are live.
We are. Yay!
Yay. I tell you, having music as the intro really helps the guests relax and come on smiling.
Exactly. And branded as well, because people get Smiley and you all in one.
There we go. So, welcome everybody to the newly renamed Sarah's B2B Live Lounge, and we'll talk about this in a second. But I'm really, really honoured and excited for my guest today, so much so that I shifted the time of my live lounge this week so that I could host from Australia, Michelle J. Raymond. Woo!
Yay! And thank you for changing times. It's, early evening here. I know it's early morning for you, but it's the joys of living on the other side of the world. It just doesn't quite work out with time zones.
It doesn't, and especially in the summer. I guess I could have waited or waited until September. But hey, I was keen to get you on, Michelle, and I'm really happy to have
Exactly.
you here. Yeah,
Let's do this.
let's do this indeed. So we were having a really nice chat before because we like to have a little green room chit chat, don't we? Before, and we were talking about all kinds of things. And one of the things that we began to touch on was this whole thing about calling your podcast, your show, whatever it is, the name LinkedIn something or other. So I've had to change, well, I haven't had to change the name of the LinkedIn Live Lounge to the B2B Live Lounge, but I've chosen to do so because LinkedIn don't like you using their name. And I think you've had a bit of a run in with LinkedIn, Michelle. Am I right?
I have. I have woken up one morning back in January, I think it was, to a cease and desist letter, which at first I thought was a fake one. And I was like, but then I kept scrolling and I was like, oh, maybe this is a real one. And, basically the story is I had a podcast called LinkedIn for B2B Growth. It was very successful. So successful, it got noticed by the powers that be at LinkedIn. And they came after me and said, no, you can't have LinkedIn in the title of anything. So you can't have it in the title of I had a company page that had the podcast name in it, which was LinkedIn for B2B Growth. So I had to change that. Any links, I had a website for the podcast as well. It was also using that name. That had to go. So new domains, new company page names, all my links broke. Like you have no idea the amount of work. But it got worse than that. You think that's bad? That wasn't even the worst of it because that was I had to come up with a new name. So it's now the Social Media for B2B Growth podcast. And it's not ideal, but it is what it is. And I understand it's LinkedIn's name, but it very clearly says in their branding guidelines, which are about, 20 pages or something, thou shalt not use LinkedIn in titles of anything. So I was like, okay, it's your name. I get it. I wouldn't want someone to do it to me. But the worst part was they also said anywhere where I use the LinkedIn logo in any other matter than a hyperlink across to my profile or to my company page. So, when you've got your email signature or somewhere on the website where you're trying to direct people, that is the only approved use for the LinkedIn logo, full stop. So all 250 videos that I had on YouTube, all my thumbnails had a little tiny LinkedIn logo, even though it was their approved one. Guess what I had to change? Well, I didn't do it. Lil did most of that work, thankfully. And so they went hardcore. So any thumbnail that had a LinkedIn logo on it, I had to change. It was crazy. It took us probably another 3 or 4 months to redo all of that stuff. And by the time we changed descriptions everywhere the podcast was mentioned, all the links broke, like it was a nightmare. So prevention is definitely better than cure. I can assure you that
Whoa,
you do not want that letter, my friend. I can
I do
assure
not.
you.
That's crazy. And what about your book, though?
Yeah, we don't mention that, but it didn't come up in the conversation. But if you were to look at, other things that are out there, and my defense was, why are you coming to me? I'm not the only podcast that has LinkedIn in the title. There's, lots of them. And, the same over on YouTube. Like there's billions of videos that have the LinkedIn logo throughout or on the thumbnails or, popping up all the graphics you see on LinkedIn that have a little LinkedIn logo anywhere. Like theoretically, none of that is possible. And so from that perspective, it was pretty hardcore and defensive. Well, everyone else is doing it, so why can't I? I'll let you know. I tried that in the nicest possible way, but no, it's a no deal. So yeah, it was pretty intense. I'm not going to say, and the last line on the cease and desist letter says, if you don't do this, we'll cancel your account. Now you can imagine me losing my LinkedIn account. I'll give you the handy tip, Sarah. That one gave me a small heart attack on the spot. So we fixed everything pretty quick smart.
Wow, that's just phenomenal, isn't it? Because my book's got the word LinkedIn in the title. I haven't released the title of my book yet, but it has got the word LinkedIn in the title. But I was very clearly, I looked at all the regulations and they said it's okay to have the name of LinkedIn in the title, but you can't use the logo and it can't be the first word.
First word. Yeah. So you can get them to approve it in advance. So I highly recommend sending it over to the team. There's an email address. Flick it over and just double check because it's much easier to get it done up front than change anything down the track.
Absolutely.
Excited for your book coming though. I know that's been a bit of a journey. I am very excited for you because I know writing a book is not as easy as it sounds.
It really isn't. I kind of thought I've got spreadsheets, I've got, Google Docs full of information. All I need to do is get all that stuff, collate it all in an order and put it in a book. Well, it's not that easy, is it? As you know, it's a lot harder. And I've got a book coach, a most amazing book coach, and she's been breathing down my neck going, you can't say that. That's rubbish. I need the next bit. Come on, hurry up. I was like, okay.
All of your inner demons come up. Like I remember when I was writing Business Gold with Linaire and most of it was reasonably easy because I know a lot about company pages and, so writing about them was easy. Got to the last chapter, which was mine to write, and it was about what were my predictions for company pages in the future. And, I was reasonably new at this whole thing. I didn't even know how to write a book. Like there was a lot of stuff going on. I was pretty early on in my journey. And I just remember sitting there for weeks. I said to Lynette, I can't write this one. She's like, Michelle, you've written like the rest of the book. What's going on? I'm like, but what if I get it wrong? What if I don't predict something that doesn't come true? What will everyone think? Will it take away my credibility? My head went down into some weirdo kind of place, which is completely normal. But it took me a while to catch on that that's what was going on. And writer's block, it was real. I could not do it until I went, actually, it doesn't matter. They're just predictions. And if they're right, they're right. And they're wrong, they're wrong. I mean, there are people at the weather stations every day that says it's a 50% chance of rain. They don't get sacked. Like,
That's hilarious. I love that analogy. That's brilliant.
So I feel you, and it's a huge congrats when you've got it all finished. As I told Michelle Griffin when we wrote the other book, it's like the equivalent of no one remembers the pregnancy. They just look at this little cute baby and go, oh wow, and forget like the rest of it. So it's like
if
that.
we remembered all of that 9 months of hell and the birth, nobody would have children, quite frankly. Yeah.
I don't know how anyone does it full stop. So shout out to all the mums who have done it. You are my heroes.
Three times. So there you go.
Exactly.
Crazy. Anyway, if you're here watching, please do say hi in the chat. If you have any questions for Michelle, please put those in the chat as well. Anything company pages related, let's get it out there. But I have got a few questions that I'd like to ask you, and I'm not asking you for predictions, so you can rest assured that won't be happening today. In fact, the first thing I want to ask you is we're looking back. So there's been a huge shift. Well, there's been a huge shift in LinkedIn generally over the last few years, but particularly in company pages. And I've certainly noticed it, and I'm definitely moving over towards company pages much more now and seeing the value of those. But because LinkedIn are changing the way that company pages are seen, the way that they're designed, the way that the content is accepted, if you like, on the platform. And you've obviously seen the changes because you've been with company pages for a long time now. And I just sort of what are the differences, really, the main differences that you've seen over maybe the last year or so of how company pages are being used and could be used?
It's kind of crazy because when we wrote the world's first and only book on company pages, and still to this day, going back, 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, the fact that LinkedIn had been around for 18 years and there was no other resources for people on company pages was crazy. The LinkedIn Pages team was only like a handful of people at that stage. And now I think there's, close to 50 of them. It's just grown so much. So much so that within 2 years, we had to rewrite Business Gold because there were so many changes that went through on company pages that if you picked up the original versus looking at LinkedIn today, you would be looking at it going, where am I? Are these people like crazy? Do they even know what they're talking about? And so things that have changed, it's much easier to grow pages now. I don't think anyone recognizes. I used to have to tell my very first clients, oh, no, stick with me, work with me. In about 6 to 9 months minimum, probably closer to 12, then you'll start to see around 1,000 followers. Like, it was ludicrous because there was no invite credits. There was no kind of help in any way from the LinkedIn side to help you get more people. And now we've got so many different ways to invite people. Employees can invite. None of that existed just 4 years ago. And the layout on LinkedIn company pages was so confusing, you could never find anything. And I love the overall design change where everything's now in a nice, neat left-hand menu. It's nice and easy for page admins to find. So that changed. Engagement, on the other hand, and, reach of company pages, I think is, harder than ever. And that's the thing that's probably dropped off over the last few years for, a number of reasons. But essentially, LinkedIn is so popular now. There's, one home feed that we're all fighting over. And I think even with the introduction of the new short form video one, there still will be a crowded home feed. So who gets put down the list? Well, it's not going to be individuals because we need individual members to come onto LinkedIn so that we can show them ads, so that LinkedIn can make lots of money from ads. And then company page organic kind of falls down the food chain. But I think we're starting to see pages now have a bit more value. And as long as you don't try and compare them to profiles work this way and pages don't work as good as profiles, that's where everyone comes unstuck. So if we can get one message across, stop comparing apples and oranges or pages and profiles. They're just designed to work different. And when you let go of that comparison, immediately all of the other ways that you can use the page show up. And, that's the message that I'm out to try and spread with people, is that you need both sides to work really well to help support employees, which I know you're a big fan of just as much as I am, building brands, personal brands and company brands. That's where the real power comes from.
Absolutely. I love that, Michelle. I love that because they are different. They're two different beasts. And so they should be. And I actually quite like the fact that company pages have less engagement because unlike certain other social media platforms where company pages go around literally bashing users over their head with their messaging and their content and their ads, etc., LinkedIn doesn't do that. And I like that a lot, actually. But we know where the company pages are, and it's relatively easy, although it could be easier to get from a personal profile to somebody's company page. Why we have to do 2 clicks, I have no idea. It drives me mad. Why can't we just do the 1 click under the banner where the icon is? This is the company I'm connected with. Why then we hit sent down to the bottom and then across? I have no idea. LinkedIn, if you're listening, please have a look at that.
Ditto from me.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. But anyway, it is relatively easy to hop over to somebody's company page from their personal profile. And I like the fact that you get to know the person first and then you find out more about them by going over to the company page. And I do love the way the company pages are now designed, and they've got the nice columns, which then transferred over to personal profiles, which was nice. So if you want to look at the videos, you go to the videos. If you want to look at the images, you go there. If you want to look at the post, you can. What I also love about company pages is that you can change the order in which you view the posts from the most. You can look at the most recent or the most, the most engaged, which I also like. So I kind of like the fact that it's different from personal profiles. But you're right, you do need both now.
Yeah, and
both.
I always use the example. Once upon a time, when I worked in the beauty industry selling chemicals, I built this amazing community on LinkedIn. It's how I got started. I had about 5,000 super niche before I even knew what that word meant. I just went out and connected with people in the industry, is all I thought it was. But it was pretty amazing. And no one else in my company was doing it. None of my competitors were doing it. And I built this amazing personal brand in that industry with all of these followers. And then what happened? Oh, I'm going to go and work for this company now and not stay where I was. So the company I work for, I literally almost stole them all and went, okay, they're coming with me. And they got left with no presence on LinkedIn. And, employees turn over. That's life. So this is why it's important to have a brand on LinkedIn, i.e. through your company page, that is always going to be there. It's reliable. It doesn't matter if people come and go. It's always going to be that best friend that's always there. But as you're replacing or trying to attract new talent, then it almost becomes the place where they go and research, what's this place really like? And I think when we start to look at pages from different perspectives, rather than just going, it's all about reach and engagement, and start looking at, actually, it's part of building a really solid brand on a business platform. Like, it's crazy not to have a business brand on a business platform. It is the place where people come to do business. It's a trusted platform. And so all of these other reasons start popping up when you take those blinkers off and start to go, what else is possible? And I hope that the people that join us today can start to look at things and go, yep, now that I've taken the pressure off, and I appreciate some people might be social media managers working for other people going, that's nice for you, Michelle, but I've got to say to my boss, why hasn't it gone up skyrocketing? And I get that. But as I say, it's more like a greatest hits library these days than, showing up in the home feed. So treat it differently.
Absolutely. And I always say it's like a mini website. And the way that I'm working with lots of different companies who they're starting to use their LinkedIn company page as an easy access place for people to find information, because it's so much easier for somebody to hop over to a company page and look at all the content in a nice, easy, clear line than it is to go navigate the website. So from that perspective, I think the content that they put on the company page does need to reflect the website, but it also needs to tell a slightly different story. Do you agree with that?
Most businesses are probably updating their website every 5 years, maybe longer in some cases. Maybe it hasn't been updated since the first time it was put up and it's not really current. Whereas the company page, if you keep it ticking over, is the place where people can get an up-to-date, and it costs zero to update it, like besides a bit of time and effort that people put in. But it really is so dynamic. And that's what I love. Something changes in the business, you've got a new priority, new business goal. Cool, we can change the page immediately. We don't need to get in tech people to say, hey, we've got to rechange the whole and redesign the whole website, help us out. So it's not costly, which I think is another bonus. You can piggyback on LinkedIn's reputation. So when people Google your business, it's going to pop up in those first few results. And just think, well, what if someone does that? And, I said in my, presentation when I was at Social Media Marketing World, it was, do you want them to find a ghost town, or do you want to roll out the red carpet? It's your choice, but what impression do you want to create for those potential customers who we know are doing their research? 80% of that buying journey is done before they even contact someone in sales. And if most B2B buyers had their way, they wouldn't even speak to any salespeople. So, again, looking at it from this perspective really changes things.
Absolutely. I always say it's your shop window, and you've got to make sure your shop's open, it's looking amazing, etc. So let's talk about content then. What are we posting on our company page? Because you're quite right, it's really easy to put a post up on LinkedIn. It's so much easier to say than booking the web developer and etc. etc. And I know, like me, I know you're a very big fan of humanizing the content on the company page. Yes, I love that. It got a cheer. For those
Absolutely, I'm a big
listening,
fan.
not watching, we got a cheer when we talk about humanizing content, because to me, that's a big difference between the LinkedIn company page and the website. So let's talk about humanizing the content and how far do we go with this? Because I get a lot of people very nervous about posting human stuff on their company page. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Michelle.
It's kind of fun when you make them nervous. It's like, I don't want to share my deep, dark secrets. And that's not what we're asking you to do, especially not on the company page. But that human content for me always performs way better than any other format of any other style of post that you can do. Because people want to know who's the faces behind the brand. Who is it that's bringing this all together? Who is that? I get an email from XYZ person. What do they look like? Who is the accounts person that always sends me these invoices? I wonder what they do. Do they look like I think they look? And you can find out, and start to get that human side. But I tell my clients, the more that you can make a LinkedIn company page post almost look like a personal post that people can't tell any difference when they're scrolling. If they're not scrolling, if they're scrolling pretty quickly, then what we can do is get them to almost go, we don't care if it's a little brand logo or if it's a face, we like the content. And so I give marketing managers a bit of a heart attack and say, you know what? We need to back off on your branding. We need to strip it all back, bare minimum, just enough to kind of keep it ticking over, and let people recognize that it is actually from the brand, but just not too much. Your people are the heroes in your business. So, put them out there in the content. But yeah, the more that we can do that behind the scenes content, celebrating milestones, these kinds of things, all super important. And I think they're the ones that it's easiest to get that kind of content. Just look around the office. You'll find things going on all day, every day. A special shout out to anyone that might be working in a manufacturing industry. Everyone wants to know what you do behind the scenes to bring things to life. You have, the biggest opportunity to take some videos and show people, how does it happen? How do I know? I worked in that industry. And there's a lot of content on social media platforms where people just sit and watch manufacturing things happen because it's fascinating. So all kinds of different ways you can do it, but bring back the faces.
Absolutely bring back the faces. So I went to a company a while back, and they manufacture environmentally friendly packaging and for freight, huge things. And they had these loads of machines where you put paper in, and it sort of crinkled up the paper to make it squidgy and spongy, to make it so it protected the goods inside the package. And it was literally, all it was doing was scrumpling up the paper. That's all it, and ripping it and tearing it and making it in different shapes so that it was squidgy and spongy. So you put a piece of paper in, and the shapes that came out were incredible. And I just stood there on my iPhone, just filming the paper going in and the paper coming out. And we posted these on their company page, and it was fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. And those posts just got so many views and so much engagement. So I completely agree.
And all you needed was an iPhone.
So
nothing fancy, no fancy equipment, just show people behind the curtain and let them see. And as someone that has spent 20 years in B2B sales, specifically in manufacturing industries of all different kinds, I have a special soft spot for that because it is just so cool to watch things come to life.
It really is. And people just love the story. People love a story, don't they, behind the brand? Why did you set this business up? How long has it been going? I've recently worked with a client, a soft drinks company in the UK. And the guy I've been talking to, his great-great-great-grandfather set the business up. And
Wow.
Grandpa Hartridge, his story. And it's just wonderful to hear those things. And people buy on those stories, don't they? And that stuff. Okay, I'm just going to give a little shout out to our good friend G in the house. Hello, G Han. Turning in at 4 a.m.
She's
Jihan,
crazy.
I am so impressed to catch my two faves. So many gems in this combo. Michelle J. Raymond, thanks for candidly sharing your story and push to be proactive versus reactive. Absolutely. We can sit and lurk on LinkedIn if we wish, but going out there and being active on LinkedIn, that's where we meet people. And Michelle and G, we've never met in real life, but I was so excited when we were, in the green room, and we've got to know each other on LinkedIn. We can't remember where we first met on LinkedIn, can we? We were trying to remember.
No, normally I can narrow it down to a certain group of people or timing, but you, I think you just kind of came in and there you were and you were fabulous. And I always love your smile. And that's why I love G2. Like your smiles, the two of you light up my feed. And I think between the three of us, I think we own this best smiles on LinkedIn. Just going to throw that out there. I think that's what
Hey,
keeps people happy. I think that's what we're known for.
I think it's an award. We should start this. Best smiles on LinkedIn. I think
Yeah.
so.
I'm
I
going to say
could do with another
Zineb.
award.
Shout out to Zineb as well, because I think she does a great job. But it just shows you that we recognize people and that energy, and we're attracted to people that are showing up authentically as themselves and go, yeah, you're my kind of person. And, businesses need to do that same strategy as well. And it might feel a little weird in the beginning because they're like, really? Should we be doing that? Yeah. And shout out to all the people running company pages. This is a public service announcement. You're allowed to have some fun. And if Sarah Clay and I are giving you permission in this episode to make sure that we have some fun, because it doesn't need to be bland and boring.
Oh, no, please. We don't want vanilla. We want fun. We want personality. We want charisma, all of those amazing things on LinkedIn, because that's our USP, isn't it? It's our characters. And if we're not showing our characters, how can people decide if they want to work with us or not?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing is, and I was talking to one of my clients, and I know when they're in a bit of a funk and they're not active on the platform, something's going on. And it's normally when they're trying to be a LinkedIn version of themselves. And one of my clients, like, she's pretty quirky, like, and that's what I love about her. But at some point, her LinkedIn post started to be a bit more, square, let's say. I was like, what is going on? And maybe she saw something or read something somewhere or thought she should have behaved in a different way. And I was like, hang on a minute. We're coming back. We want you to create your digital twin. I want you to show up who you are offline, the same online. And what do you know? The second she just went back to being herself, it was all easy to do. But I always know when people are in a funk, it's like you're trying to be a LinkedIn version of yourself, and it is the worst. I have been there and done that. When I first started, my business, and I was being a LinkedIn trainer version of Michelle J. Raymond's, it was fine, but it wasn't fun and it was exhausting. And I was like, if this is what I've signed up for, I don't want a bar of it. Whereas now people are like, why are you so happy all the time? Why do you look really healthy? Why are you, and they make comments on why I'm so upbeat. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm just being me. This is how I am. The other way is weirder for me. So, and this is when we're trying to just be LinkedIn versions of ourselves, it's definitely no fun.
Exactly. And I always say, just look at LinkedIn as a networking meeting. You walk in, you get onto the channel, you walk into the room and you start chatting to people. That's what we do in real life. Let's do this on LinkedIn.
For sure.
So talking of talking to other people, commenting, chatting, etc. So commenting on other people's posts, I'm a huge fan of that. And I talk about it a lot. In order to meet new people and share your knowledge and your kindness, whatever it is. But what's your view on company pages commenting on personal posts?
Well, in general, I'm a big fan of us being able to have that opportunity to do that. But like everything, if it's in the hands, the tools in the hands of the wrong people, it just can be really bad. So shout out to all of those AI commenting company pages right now that are showing up on everybody's post, doing AI generated comments just because they can. Doesn't mean you should. And that's driving me crazy at the moment. Like AI comments in general, don't even start me on that one, because you'll just see me like, I'll have steam coming out of my ears. But I think brands do need to get involved in conversations where it makes sense. So, i.e., don't go do it on your competitors, but maybe you see someone out there that's struggling with your product, and, maybe it's Canva. Maybe someone's done a post going, I want to throw my computer because I can't work out how to do this. You have a great opportunity as a brand to show up and say, hey, how can we help? Here's a video that might make a difference, and, really lead those conversations. Because in general, you should be listening. Like, social listening is a real thing, listening out for what are the opportunities out there for people that might need your products or services. And I don't think people pay attention enough to that on the business development side of LinkedIn. I think they think we'll just post and then apparently all the opportunities just come at you. But if you scroll the feed for long enough and listen for what people are having problems with or talking about, that's where you spot who needs your help or who needs your services. So I think brands should be involved in conversations. I think brands should be commenting. I think they could repost and add their thoughts. And I think, that's a great way to show up in other places. But it just takes, it's a bit more nuanced, I think, is the thing. And you just have to be a bit more considerate. And yeah, there's some pretty bad examples out there, which like I said, they're like the mosquitoes at the picnic. No one wants them there. You can't seem to make them go away, but hopefully the more we talk about it, the less these things will happen.
Let's hope so. Yeah, and I like it when a company page comments on a post and they put the name of the person who's actually made that comment. So, John at so and so company. And I think that adds a little bit of personalization. I quite like that.
Yeah, it's so easy. And I always, on every single one of my posts, always have a comment from my own company page. And that might be something like, by the way, if you want to book a call with Michelle, here's where you can do it. So I don't have to do that in the post, but I can still connect my company with my personal brand. And, I don't have a huge company. I don't have a team of 10,000 people, but if you are a company page admin and you have the ability to see all of the key employee posts that are going out there, you absolutely have to get out there and get your company page supporting your team. Like, that is one thing that I absolutely tell all of my clients. It's your job to work together, and that page should be cheering on the personal brands just as much as you want your employees to do it the other way. And in fact, it's much easier to get them to do it if you're leading by example. Like, what, because if you think about it, why should an employee go and like a company page post if no one supports their content? Like, of course, we talk about it all the time. What goes around comes around, as my nan said, and it's a good message. The law of reciprocity is the fancy terms for it, but I like my nan's words. They're a bit easier to say on a podcast, but from that perspective. But that's the fancy word for it. But yeah, just what goes around comes around. Treat other people how you want to be treated. And LinkedIn is a perfect example of that.
It is, you're absolutely right. And I see the personal profiles of employees and the company pages as having a sort of symbiotic relationship, and it's exactly that. What goes around comes around. You help us, we'll help you back. I'll scratch your back, and you scratch mine.
Yeah, it's why do like sports, people that are elite professional athletes, why do they want to work for the, or play for the best team? No one wants to work, if you're an amazing athlete, you don't want to go and play for the local team. Like, you're trying to get to the highest. So this is where those company brands come in. It's where we're proud to go and work here. We're all working together. And, if you've got a good company culture where you trust your employees, and that's probably the underlying thing here. If you've got a crappy culture, I don't think it plays out well on LinkedIn. It will just, you'll try and use brute force to get your employees to do this and do this because I said. And yeah, that's never a strategy I'm going to be on board with. And I'm pretty sure you're not going to be either.
No. And when I'm working with companies and helping them with their employee advocacy, and I'll see an employee who's really struggling and isn't engaging at all, and I'll reach out to them. I'll say, are you okay? Can I help you? Can I support you? And you find out that they just hate doing it. They don't want to do it. I'm never going to make anybody comment on posts on LinkedIn if they don't want to do it, because
No.
it'll show that they're doing it through gritted teeth, and B, why would you do that? It's not good for the brand, and it's certainly not good for them, and it's no good for employee-employer relations. So I just say, okay, well, you don't do it. Let's choose somebody else. But as long as the CEOs are doing it and the top, the C-suite are doing it, leading by example, then I think that's important. But you will always get people in a company who do not want to engage and do not do it because it's just not them. And
Yeah.
you've got to respect that.
Bit of empathy goes a long way when it comes to this kind of stuff, and starting small and then worrying about it. Because the last thing you want is to alienate a really good employee that just isn't comfortable for whatever reasons. It could be any kind of fear that you can imagine. It's really more common than not. You don't want to alienate them so they leave the business because you wanted to force them to start liking and commenting and writing posts. Like, that's crazy. It's about getting the best out of who's there. And I've watched people that start off like that. And then over time, when everyone else is doing their part and they kind of sit back and watch and see, how's this going to play out? then they might start like little actions from time to time, a little like here or, just a little repost there. And, that just makes me so proud because those people, it's such a big step and that's an important step. So it's always, meet people where they're at and find out how can you just take them on that next little jump. And, sometimes the company page comments or a company page, post that goes out, getting your employees to just start, hey, can you just like that post? That's all we ask. Just press the little like button and you can get most people will be reasonably comfortable to do that. At least probably 8 or 9 out of 10 will be okay. Just start with baby steps. There's nothing that has to be done overnight. And I think I'm literally in the middle of writing a LinkedIn post today that is all about just I know people are eager. I know that they want to get out there. I know that they recognize the power of LinkedIn, but sometimes it's that enthusiasm that's killing the long-term success of the program. And so sometimes it's just slow down, take a breath, and just take these baby steps and build a really solid foundation. So, so it's just, I've just seen people, they're putting so much pressure on themselves as business owners or their teams, the marketing managers are, already juggling probably multiple platforms, websites, blogs, communications, you name it. There's normally a one person trying to do everything. And so if we just kind of take that pressure off, I think it's so much more fun. And we're back to that word again, more fun for people to do the content. So yeah, I think that's the secret to success.
Absolutely. And I'm a big fan of praising. If somebody likes a post for the first time, I will praise that person because that's a big step for them. And somebody else might, well, all they did was like, but it's about that person and what they're capable of and what they want and feel comfortable doing.
A like can take someone months of psyching themselves into doing it because they, in their mind, may have invented all the reasons why they shouldn't do that because of the consequences for them. Because a lot of employees, you're thinking, well, if I do something wrong and I lose my job, my financial well-being impacts my family, and the stress of all that, which is connected to just that little like, is really important to be mindful of things like that because most people fear being judged by their colleagues, their bosses. They wonder, what if I get it wrong? What if it's already been said before? Everyone thinks I'm dull, I'm boring, I'm not smart enough. Like this is the normal noise in everyday people's head, whether they're C-suites or people that are just starting out and everywhere in between. So, I talk about mindset a lot lately because I just realized that it's such a powerful first step that we need to get in place and just be conscious that it's not just like, oh, we did training with like Sarah or Michelle, and now we're just going to flick a switch and everybody's going to be fine. I wish I could do that, but haven't found that magic way just yet.
No, I don't think it's there, unfortunately. But there we go. Do you know, I've just looked at the time. We are way over. 8 minutes over time.
I talk too much. Who would have thought?
No,
Who would have
but I
thought
could
we'd
talk
get
to you all
sidetracked?
day. I absolutely could. So we're going to wrap up. We have to wrap up, unfortunately, which is such a shame. But I'd love to get you back on another time, Michelle. But I'd love to close with, if you can give the listeners, the viewers, 3 tips that they can take away and action today regarding their company pages. That would be amazing. So have you got 3 tips for us, Michelle?
I do. 3 quick and actionable ones. The way I always like it is the first thing I want people to do is go to the company page if you're a page admin and take a look as a member. So take a look at what it looks like and then go through and do a quick audit and go, does this really reflect our business today? And the number one area I want you to focus on is the about section, because quite often they were set up by the person who was there before at some stage, and people fill in the bare minimum and it doesn't reflect what the business product, service, values, who they are, what makes them different. That's always missing. So go back and spend some time and, put a bit of love into it, as I always say. The next thing that I would say is just a simple tip is to make sure that your employees have updated their LinkedIn profiles to make sure that it shows that they're working at your company. Now, that's going into their personal profiles, down into the work experience section. And it's such an often overlooked thing because people are like, why would I need to update my LinkedIn profile? Who cares? But there's so many other opportunities that happen when we do that. And I think the last thing is grab your mobile phone and go and take a photo of something cool that's going on in your office today, or out in the factory or wherever your team are, and capture some of that in the moment. You know, maybe somebody's laughing, someone's having fun, maybe someone's celebrating a 10-year milestone or longer. And, you know, share that. Let us see those faces, you know, behind the scenes. So hopefully they're just short and snappy, but I think they're really important and potentially game changers for people because, yeah, it's amazing how many people don't even show that they work at the company that they work at.
Yes, absolutely. And when I start working with a company, they'll say, "Oh, these are all our employees." I go, "But these people aren't there. They're not there." So amazing 3 tips. So viewing your page as a member, I always advise people to do this because you don't know really what it looks like otherwise because it's structured very differently. So view your page as a member and look at that about section and maybe think about changing that. Brilliant tip. Second tip is ensure all the employees have got updated profiles, whether or not actually they're active on LinkedIn, as long as if their profile is up to date and looking good. And thirdly, that all your employees are connected via their experience section to the company page. Amazing 3 tips. Thank you, Michelle J. Raymond. It's been a pleasure. I'm so sorry, guys. We are now 11 minutes over time. But hey, we're adding value like no tomorrow. So thank you so much for coming all the way from Australia to my purple sofa and joining me on the newly named B2B Live Lounge. Thank you for our audience. Thank you, Jihan, for your amazing comments. And I'm going to play out with the music because we like a bit of music. And we will see you next week. I have Michelle J. Raymond's book writing colleague on the show, Lynette Johnston.
Yay!
All the
You're
way
in,
from New Zealand.
I was going to say Team ANZ. So it's, you know, live from down under in this part of the world. So, yeah, super exciting. But thank you for having me on the show. You know, we get pretty passionate about this stuff. So I'll stop talking now because we'll keep going all day and night. So I better just say, hope everyone enjoyed this. Cheers.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Michelle J. Raymond.